Hey guys, what's happening? It is Autumn Skylar, and today I wanted to do a little talking video. It's been a little bit since I sat down and had a little chat with you guys, so I figured today would be a good opportunity for that. So, today I wanted to talk to you guys about one of the conditions that I have, which is Ehlers Danlos Syndrome. So, moving right along into it, Ehlers Danlos Syndrome is a very broad term that describes 13 different subtypes and classifications, all of which having to do with the connective tissue that runs throughout the entirety of the body. Fun times. With each of these specific classifications, you have issues that tend to focus on specific parts of the body. For example, with the vascular type, you will find that it is mostly the blood vessels in the heart that are majorly affected. Because the heart and the blood vessels are the ones being mostly impacted by their Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, that is the classification that has, sadly, the worst prognosis. Luckily, I do not have that classification. I have the most common, which is Hypermobility Syndrome. In fact, it's very likely that you have even met somebody that has Hypermobility Syndrome, or even seen someone on TV. One of the most common examples that I can think of is seeing someone that is a contortionist, because more likely than not, somebody that is a contortionist has hypermobility syndrome, or specifically Ehlers-Danlos hypermobility syndrome. That is because with the hypermobility syndrome, as the name suggests, you are hypermobile with your joints. It is very easy for you to do crazy tricks and moves. Some of the diagnostic criteria does involve showing off that flexibility. For example, one of the things that they will look for is this test, I forget the name of it, but you attempt to put your thumb to your little forearm wrist area. I can do that very easily. You can play along at home if you want to see if you could have this condition, just very easily. Check it on out. If you can't do it, that's good. You don't want to be able to do that. One of the other things that they will check is to see if you can stand up and bend over and place your palms flat on the floor. I am able to do that. I'm not going to show that because that would involve changing the camera angle as well as showing off my tremory legs, which I'm not really comfortable showing off as of this current moment. Anyways, in regards to hypermobility syndrome, though it largely affects the skin and the joints, it can also affect every part of your body. One of the largest examples of this is many people with hypermobility syndrome have gastrointestinal issues. One of them being gastroparesis, which can get so severe that individuals have to permanently be fed through a feeding tube that is usually placed in the gastrointestinal region. I know I have gastroparesis that is thankfully not severe in any sense, but is something that does affect my daily life because I don't digest food normally. It's uncomfortable, it's not great. Now, you can also have issues with your intestinal tract, you can have issues with gynecological regions, anywhere. I mean, one of the issues that I have that I've mentioned in past videos on my previous channel is I had that craniocervical instability that went undiagnosed for about 1.5 years, which was why I was having such severe issues and so many medical relapses, because my head and neck, they didn't sit right on one another. They just were misaligned, hence having to have the fusion. So it is a challenging condition, and I am going to be speaking mostly about hypermobility because that is the one that I am most well versed in, because it is the condition, as I stated, that I have. Now, it can be challenging to find doctors that know what you're talking about. You wouldn't think that if you don't know of this condition personally. You'd think that a doctor would know everything. But if you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you learn very quickly that doctors are not all-knowing beings who have heard of every condition under the sun. I mean, it is a challenge for many individuals to get a diagnosis. I know it was a challenge for me to get a diagnosis because many doctors, neurologists had never heard of it. They never mentioned it. They just didn't know that it was an issue I was experiencing. It took being taken seriously by a neurosurgeon to get diagnosed and treated. It sadly is a challenge for many individuals in the Ehlers Danlos community. And it can be very frustrating because it becomes a challenge for you to trust that your doctors are going to be able to help you. And especially when you have to hop around from doctor to doctor because they keep telling you that there's nothing wrong with you, something commonly heard by individuals with Ehlers Danlos before they're diagnosed. Or if they are told that there is nothing that they can do to help you, it is a challenge to get medical treatment. The good thing is there is a lot more research being done. There are many advocacy groups that are trying to get this to be more well known because of how much it affects those that have it and how debilitating it can be and permanently debilitating. There are many individuals with Ehlers Danlos syndrome that are permanently wheelchair bound that have to rely entirely on a wheelchair to get around, period. And a lot of the time, people's conditions continue to debilitate without getting a diagnosis, when if they had gotten that diagnosis in the first place, some medical intervention may have been taken to prevent it from getting so bad. But because a lot of doctors aren't well versed in it, people aren't getting diagnosed before the issue gets to a dire point. It can be very frustrating. It can be a very lonely feeling to feel as though you're going crazy because you know you're experiencing all of these symptoms, but your doctors are telling you that there's nothing wrong with you. And at times you can feel like giving up or be worried that you're becoming a hypochondriac, that you're making up what's going on with your body or over-exaggerating when in reality you're not. The doctors aren't looking for Ehlers Danlos syndrome because they either aren't knowledgeable of it or don't know about it in the first place. But things are getting better. They aren't 100% better yet, but we're on our way to getting people more in the know about this condition. And it's also great that with these advocacy groups, they're getting the word out to people who aren't specifically looking for Ehlers Danlos syndrome. So basically, random people are coming across these pages when looking up some of the symptoms they're experiencing and being able to see that their symptomology matches Ehlers Danlos syndrome and being able to take that to a doctor. And I think that that is a wonderful thing because it can allow for early intervention, which is one of the most important things with Ehlers Danlos syndrome. But sometimes, even with early intervention, there's no guarantee. There's no prognosis that is 100% accurate because every case of Ehlers Danlos, whether hypermobile or otherwise, is different. And everyone reacts to treatment in different ways. Everybody needs different treatment because it affects them in a different way. It's very challenging. And I'm sure even from a medical standpoint as a doctor, when you're trying to treat a patient and they just aren't responding to the treatment, it can feel as though you're not able to help them because there are so many unknowns. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's very important to talk about this condition and to spread awareness, as well as to get funding for these research groups that are trying to get the research done that is necessary for accurate and helpful treatment to be administered to people with these conditions. I feel very lucky that I was able to get a diagnosis at a younger age because I know it's only going to be helpful in the future to be able to write down on any doctor's chart that I have this condition. They'll be able to reference that. And that's very important because it'll help many issues from getting worse. And I feel very blessed to have that because a lot of people don't find out for a very long time, and it can be very detrimental to their quality of life. So in that way, I'm very blessed. Overall, having Ehlers Danlos is scary at times, but there are so many groups on Facebook, on Reddit, pretty much any social media platform. You can find groups that are dedicated to talking about individuals' experiences with Ehlers Danlos. And that's so wonderful. I mean, I've seen just since being diagnosed, so many more groups pop up. It's really becoming a more well-known condition, and I am so excited to see that because it's only going to help people to be knowledgeable about this. I really think that it can only do good things, and that's kind of also why I like talking about this condition as well as some of the other conditions that I experience, because awareness, I think, is one of the most important things with any condition. I think even if you have something that's very commonly known about, having more awareness about it can only do good. I mean, sure, there are some cases where people can have that hypochondriac sort of reaction to this onslaught of information and self-diagnose without going to a doctor. That can happen, but I think that's in the minority. Some doctors seem to think that that's the majority. They will brush off what you're saying because they think that you are a Google doctor. That's something that I have heard many times. I have heard them say similar things even about my mother. When she was bringing up this condition, they would say that she was just using Dr. Google to diagnose things, and they would brush it off as though it wasn't that big of a deal. So, things are getting better, but I think that there is still a long way to go before we really see major impact. And I'm hopeful that this video, in whatever small sense, can add to that. Now, if you suspect yourself to have Ehlers Danlos, I really do suggest bringing it up with your general practitioner. And if they are not knowledgeable about the condition, do some research, not enough that's going to freak you out. Do some research, see if there are any specialists in your area, get yourself an appointment, see whatever medical professionals that you can, even if just to ease your mind. Because sometimes the anxiety of thinking you have a condition can be detrimental in of itself, even if you don't have that condition. So I really think that if, you saw me do any of those little things and noticed that you could do those as well, just keep that in mind at the very least. I'm going to leave some links to some articles, to some of the communities that are out there, advocacy groups, all of that jazz, so that way you can get more medical information, whereas opposed to me just kind of spewing the things that I have seen and read and experienced. You can get a more thoroughly researched perspective, something that is more, not necessarily accurate, 'cause it's not like I'm sitting here lying. It's just people that are gonna be saying it with more knowledge on the entirety of the syndrome spectrum than I do. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching. I always appreciate whenever anyone clicks on one of my videos. It really means a lot to me, and specifically when it comes to videos like this, they mean a lot to me because it's something I experience, and I really, really, really want people to know about these conditions, so in case they have it, they can get it dealt with before it's a problem. That's something that really is important to me. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. The next video will be a singing video or something of the sort, and I hope that you guys will join me for that. Thank you guys for sitting through this video. I love you very much, and I will see you in the next one.